What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. This is volume 2 of the boxing articles, and I decided to take out my Jack Johnson scrapbook. This was a heavy book. The way I have my books cataloged and stationed are by volumes. And this is volume 87. And like I said before, these books are 50 pounds, some are 60 pounds a piece. And they're packed with 1,000 pages, 2,000 front and back, of that one fighter, each book. And this entire book is Jack Johnson. Everything you can think of Jack Johnson is in his book. Every article, every fighting pose, boxing cards, covers. I mean, double spread newspaper articles, everything is in here. So I take great pride in this particular book, but I wanted to show you a genuine article of Jack Johnson and Frank Moran. That fight took place June 27th, 1914. George Compartier was the referee. He was the reigning European middleweight champion. He was a future world light heavyweight champion. He was also a European middleweight champion. He was in the ring with fighters such as Jack Dempsey and Gene Tunney and Harry Greb. He was an outstanding fighter, fought from featherweight to heavyweight. And he lost his crown to battling Siki. He was a very good fighter, was George Compartier, but he was a referee for this fight. It took place at the Velodrome in Paris, France. 20 rounds went to Jack Johnson. Frank Moran was known as the fighting dentist. And that's interesting because you also had another fighter. His name was the fighting dentist. But Jack Johnson was born March 31st, 1878 in Galveston, Texas. He was known as the Galveston Giant. He died June 10th, 1946. He was on his way, passing through Raleigh, North Carolina, to see Joe Louis and Billy Conn. It would be their rematch. And he either ran off the road or was shoved off the road, one of the two. They had a fighting career record of 75 total bouts, 54 wins, 34 knockouts, 11 losses. He was stopped 6 times and had 7 draws. He was 6 foot and weighed over 200 pounds. He had a 74-inch reach. And he was a hell of a fighter, one of the greatest offensive fighters in boxing history. He learned his tricks of the trade from George Owinski. Helped tighten up his defense and offense. He'd be in the ring with a fighter by the name of John Klondike Haynes. He was tough as nails, fought him in Chicago, Illinois. Knocked him out in 15 rounds and was paid $1.50. That was his purse. And Jack Johnson would rematch with Klondike Haynes June 25th, 1900, Galveston, Texas. February 25th, 1901. He faced aging Joe Chowinski, and both were locked up. And Chowinski would take the trades that he would learn in fighting Jim Corbett and many others, and he would apply it to the already skillful and defensive-minded fighter, Jack Johnson. And Jack Johnson would be in the ring with Denver Ed Martin, February 3rd, 1903. It's in Los Angeles for the Colored Heavyweight Championship belt. And Jack Johnson would defeat Denver Ed Martin and become the brand new Colored Heavyweight Champion. Be in the ring with Sam McVeigh, February 27th, 1903. Defeat him in 20 rounds. Joe Butler, May 11th, 1903. Knock him out in 3 rounds. Black Bill, Sandy Ferguson, Marvin Hart. He'd be in there with Sam Langford. That fight would go to distance. That would take place in 1906. Joe Giannetti fought him 10 times. Sam McVeigh over 5 times. Jack Thompson 3 times. Ed Gunbo Smith, July 4th, 1910, he'd be in the ring with Jim Jeffries. And he would batter him around the ring, defeating him in 15 rounds. And that would be Jim Jeffries' only loss. As for Frank Moran, he was born March 18th, 1887, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He died December 18th, 1967, Clover City, California. Stood 6'1", weighed 190 to 206 pounds. He would lose 6 rounds to Blackfoot Simmons. They called him Kid Monday. But he would return the favor, Blackfoot Simmons, by knocking him out in 6 rounds. He was in the ring with Tony Ross and Al Plaza, Jim Savage, and Bombardier, Billy Wales. March 25th, be in the ring with Jess Willard, who was a former heavyweight champion. It'll be a 10-round no decision. April 13th, Tom Carver, New York, stopped him in 4 rounds. June 29th, Jack Dillon. They called him the Giant Slayer, the Giant Killer. He was a light heavyweight champion. December 18th, Ed Gunboat Smith, Fred Fulton, and Carl Morris. He was 3-1 favorite when he fought Jack Johnson. Johnson would be paid $35,000. And Frank Moran was paid $5,000. George Carpentier would decide that Jack Johnson was the victor because he was the referee and he was the judge. And I'm showing you an article of this fight. Gave you somewhat of a background and a breakdown of the two fighters. But these two men were very good fighters, but Jack Johnson was excellent. And he was just a guy that spoke his mind and did what his heart told him to do. And for that, I respect him. Phenomenal fighter was Jack Johnson. I will go through some more articles of Jack Johnson, show you some pictures that you probably have never seen before. But I just wanted to give you a perspective on Jack Johnson and Frank Moran. Like I said, he was a dynamic fighter. I want to shout out Blood Boxing. He's showing articles and I told him I would, in his efforts, join him in showing articles myself. So this is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fighters and all great fights will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to my viewers and those who support me. Salute to Jack Johnson. He was called the Galveston Giant. One of the greatest heavyweight champions of all times. Many have him ranked 1 through 5. Happen to have Jack Johnson ranked number 7. Actually, I have him number 8 behind Joe Louis. So thanks for your time. Salute. Excuse the blur, I'm just trying to give you a perspective of what this article says without me reading anything. As you can see here, George Carpentier was a referee. Fully 30,000 victims were at the ringside. I'll let you read on. I'm trying to focus this, I apologize. Like I said, I have 2,000 pages back, front and back, of nothing but Jack Johnson. There's so many articles of Jack Johnson. It's just a lot. Let me just see if I can give you a little bit more information here. All right, I'm just trying, but it's too much. Let me just... All right, salute.